Hi, and welcome to the show. Subscribe at kevinemy.com/podcast and get CME for this episode by clicking on the CME link in the show notes. Today, we welcome Anjani Mahabashya. She is a physician advisor. Her Kevin MD article is titled The Art of Compassionate Leadership During Employee Turmoil. Anjani, welcome to the show.
Hi, Kevin, and hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here today, Kevin. And thank you for creating this wonderful platform. I've heard many of the episodes and the remarkable journeys of many people which are quite inspirational. It gives you hope, it gives you some direction, it gives you some tips and tricks. You remember things and you're like, you know what? If they did it, I can do it too. So thanks for creating this beautiful platform. It's for healthcare providers, and I'm amazed how many healthcare providers are coming out and telling their stories and humanizing, the things that they are going through, the journeys that they are going through. So that's very, very remarkable of what you're doing.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm looking forward to hearing your story and journey. So let's start
Yeah.
there.
So I was born in India, and I would start with the reason why. Why did I want to become a physician in the first place? I was very attached to my father, and I lost my father when I was 12 years old to a medical illness. And the pain that I was going through, I didn't want anybody else to experience that pain. And at that tender age, I decided I wanted to become a doctor, and I stuck to it. And I worked very hard and planned everything in my life in order to achieve that dream, and I became a physician. I went to med school in India, did a part of my clerkships in the United States, and went to residency in Michigan, after which I practiced for 3 years in Iowa. I was in a waiver position, after which I shifted to another job, which was again a hospitalist in Pennsylvania. And 1 year into that job, so this was about approximately 4 years after my residency, I was injured on the job. I
Mm,
fell in the hospital, and I did not think that it would be such a long recovery. One thing
sure.
kept adding to another, and eventually, I obviously couldn't perform the duties of a hospitalist, which are pretty much on your feet, 12 hours a day, 7 days, sometimes longer stretches. I couldn't do that anymore. So after 6 months of wait, the hospital obviously had to like replace me with another provider, and I had to find something that fit my physical ability in a very compressed timeline.
Hmm.
Uh, at the same time, I was going through, obviously, that the whole complexity of the transition was just unbelievable. And I pivoted to physician advisor during that process without knowing what it is. And now I'm a physician advisor. I'm exactly 3 years. September 2020, I was offered this role, and we are here September 2023. So that's where I am. I'm a physician advisor.
All right. So tell us, so for those who aren't familiar, what
Yeah.
exactly is a physician advisor?
So physician advisor, let's see, it's a bridge role. It's a role, it's an partly administrative role, which is forming a bridge between leadership and the physicians, and a bridge between the hospital and the insurance companies, and a bridge between the other entities in the hospital, let's say revenue management or CDI. Each hospital has a particular way their physician advisor is laid out, but this is mainly a bridge role where you're facilitating that flow of healthcare. It's more on the business side of healthcare, where you're understanding what are the compliances, how is a hospital paid, what is the right status to keep the patient in, and how do you utilize resources to optimize that care. It's more like a value based care, and sticking to the insurance companies and their own expectations and Medicare rules. So you have to pretty much know everything. It's fluid, it keeps changing all the time, so you have to definitely update yourself with what's going on around you.
All right. Let's talk about your Kevin MD article titled The Art of Compassionate Leadership During Employee Turmoil. Now, tell us, how did your article come together?
I spoke about my journey on many platforms, and I wanted to, pen my thoughts too. Sometimes it's good to write things as well.
Sure.
And that's how this article, I wrote it and I sent it to you, and you're kind enough to accept it. So thank you for that. A lot of people read it, and, I really felt that was one of the ways we could reach out to people, not only podcasts. Sometimes people connect to what you write. Sometimes people are able to connect to what we speak. I think there are different channels of communication that we can use to tell our story. So that's how the article came together. I think with my journey, the leadership mattered the most, because my transition was not just the transition of titles, where one day I decided, okay, from hospitalist, I'll become a physician advisor. It was a very, very complex transition. And I was totally heartbroken when I lost my position, because I just cannot tell you how good my former boss is. Her name is Dr. Bradley. I was in a fantastic team of hospitalists, and to lose that, I didn't expect that something like that would
Yeah.
happen. And she was very compassionate to step out of her boss's shoes to listen to me for an hour. I was crying, I was bargaining, I was in denial, I was angry, I went through all those phases, and to just be with me for that 1 hour, I just remember one thing that she said, which stuck to my soul in that 1 hour. She said, everything happens for a reason, and you will know it one day. And 3 years later, Kevin, I am very happy where I am, with my job, with everything around me. So I think as a leader, showing that pathway to somebody who is really struggling was very essential to me at that point, because I was walking into uncertainty. I didn't know how my current boss would be. I didn't know what team I was walking into.
Sure.
I did not know the place, the system, nothing. And when I first met my current boss, he waited for me as soon as I got down the
Yeah.
shuttle. He was actually waiting for me. He drove down just to meet me. And as I mentioned in my article, he saw me on the crutches, he smiled at me, and he slowed down his pace to walk with me. He never made me feel rushed to, catch up and walk faster. So I think those little things really stayed with me. I could never forget how I was treated in the initial transition phase, because obviously I had to change all the healthcare providers. It
Yeah.
was a very complex transition. So giving time to the employee for that complex transition and adjusting to their human side as well was very critical at that time. And my first year was very rough, because I
Yeah.
was going through a lot of pain still in the job. But because of the leadership, I was able to learn on the job, everything on the job. I learned from everybody, from the nurses, from my colleagues, from revenue management, from other systems. Everybody were contributing to my growth. And that was very critical at that point. And I don't know, like it just evolved. I always say that leadership is pretty much like parenting, right? Like kids are not always going to be the same. They have their good days, they have their bad days, they have
Yeah.
their worst days. Creating that safe environment where the kid feels that I can come and tell you something, if it's a bad day for me. So I think for my current boss, he always created a safe space for me where I could tell I am in too much pain today, or I need a mental break. I think that communication was both ways. The communication flow was so easy. And I think as a leader, you have to take that first step, right? Because you're in the position of power, and
Yeah.
I should be welcomed into that kind of space where then I can start my communication process. So it's been such a beautiful journey with such great leaders. And I want to emphasize that that's very critical to create that safe space for somebody who's struggling. And you might just bring out really great things out of the employees if you create that safe space. Because in my first year, Kevin, all that I wanted to just take care of my pain and protect my career, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the dream I saw since age 12. And in the second year, I saw I was expanding. I got involved into community, I got involved into a nonprofit, I started doing projects in the system. And the third year, I'm growing more and more. So also leadership is empathy in leaderships also allows you to adapt to your employee. The first year, all my boss had to do was support me through my pain and journey. Now he's supporting me as I'm growing. Like recently, I was appointed for board of directors for
Mm.
American College of Physician Advisors. When I said I want to apply, he said go for it, and I was selected. So I think the transition, he saw me grow, just like a parent sees their child grow.
Sure.
He saw me grow in these 3 years. And I think that credit should definitely go to such wonderful leaders who allow you to grow, who support you during your rough times, your good times, bad times, and see what happens. And this is really for all the administrators out there, to provide support and see how much a person can grow under your umbrella.
Now, I'm sure as a physician, you have worked with many leaders before. Now, this
Mhm.
particular compassionate leadership, as you wrote in your article, do you think that's atypical of healthcare leaders today, or do you think that's relatively common?
Oh, unfortunately, it's not common. I think we all get quite caught up in numbers and the perfection. And, I think it's everything is important. I
Yeah.
deal with numbers all the time. I'm dealing with data all the time, but I also make sure that the humanity or the human aspect of it is not taken away, which is why I think when you read an email, you're not really trying to like respond to the data question of it, but adding a little bit of humanity. Okay, you're not well, I hope you get better soon, but this is what I want in the agenda. So I think those are the things that I have made sure I do it time and again. And I don't think it is really existent, but we
Mhm.
all have to like make a conscious effort. It's very intentional.
Now, after this compassionate leadership that you observed made such a difference on you, how did that affect your leadership style? Because, like you said, as
Mhm.
a physician, that inherently is a position of power. So, how did this leadership that you experienced, how did it influence your own leadership?
Thank you so much for that, Kevin. Again, I think every relationship requires empathy. It's not just at work or in a position. I think you can touch any person and help them feel understood and heard, and they will walk with you. You can bring people, you can seal deals just by understanding anybody's perspective. I think that has helped me. I will just give you a couple of examples. When I picked up that amount of warmth and compassion from my boss, and he actually made me the chair of committee in my second year of my journey. So when I'm running the meeting, at the end of the meeting, I pick one person in the team and I appreciate the person if they have gone like out of their way to do something. I think like appreciation and showing them that their work is seen. Those things I have somehow naturally like developed, and
Sure.
I do that, and the person whom I'm picking doesn't know I'm going to pick them that month, and they're so happy. You can hear them on the meeting, like most of the times I think, because we're really remote all the time,
Yeah.
it's you have to make that extra effort to catch somebody's tone of voice. It's difficult to know what somebody is going through in email, so I think making that effort is something that I learned from my boss. And I take every opportunity. We're not perfect sometimes, I do miss things, but when I realize I missed something, I was not empathetic, or I missed a chance, I go back and I correct it. I definitely make sure that I do that if I realize. Yeah.
So, when you say that empathy is such a huge part of leadership, give us an
Mhm.
example of what kind of questions can we ask our team members to really ensure that empathy comes across? What are some questions we can ask? What are some specific things that healthcare leaders can better do to show that empathy?
I would say, is there anything I could do to help you perform better? Or, is there anything I can do to help you elevate your own idea? I think whenever this role requires a lot of pitching of ideas in order to like smoothen the healthcare
Yeah.
system. So I've observed that my boss always says if he is not really particularly excited about an idea, he would give me the why. So I think those are the things very critical, like when you're turning down an idea, you always have to explain why, so that that person comes back to you with another idea. Like that's those are those really little things that I picked up on him with from him. And definitely asking what is something that I can do to help you grow.
We're talking to Anjani Mahabashya. She is a physician advisor. Her Kevin MD article is titled The Art of Compassionate Leadership During Employee Turmoil. Anjani, tell us some of your take home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience.
So, Kevin, let's do something different here. Instead of a take home message, I would ask a question to all your audience. How would empathy change your life for the better? How would it change? Would it make you a better partner, a better parent, a better leader? How would it change? And there was a beautiful story in one of your podcasts. Her name is Dr. Chloe Lee.
Hmm.
She is a medical student who went through a lot of partner abuse. when you listen with empathy, that video, the first half, I'm normal too. I'm thinking, kid, what are you doing? Like you're so smart, so beautiful. But then when she goes into the part where she talks about hope, she talks about manipulation, she talks about shame, that's when you understand why she was stuck in that relationship. And that is empathy. When you understand how to like listen and understand another person's perspective, it just increases your worldview, it elevates your own life, so it makes your life better. So that is why empathy is so important.
Anjani, thank you so much for sharing your story, time, and insight. And thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you, Kevin. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.